This is Catholic Forum. I'm Bob Krebs. This year, the Dialog newspaper, the official news source for the Catholic Diocese of Wilmington, is celebrating its 60th anniversary. Here to talk about the Dialog are Mike Lang, longtime writer for the Dialog, and Joe Owens, the editor and general manager of the Dialog. Gentlemen, it's good to have you here. Congratulations on this milestone.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to producing it. It's not done yet. It will be soon.
That's right. You have a special edition of the Dialog coming out.
Yeah,
and Mike, I understand you've been doing a lot of research for this special section, right?
So much that I needed to take a week off after it was done. Yeah, we just looked through a lot of old physical newspapers. So
right.
It was interesting.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that. Before we do, let's get to know you a little bit. Now, Joe, regular listeners to Catholic Forum will know you from your newscast that you give us each week. But tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. I've been full-time in the newspaper since 1980. I was part-time a little bit before that. People might remember the Evening Bulletin, people around here, but that didn't last very long because it folded in 1982. But so I've worked for 4 daily newspapers. That seemed hard to believe, but in 40-some years. But I've been here in the diocese almost 8, running the Dialog and the Dialog.org.
Right.
So it's 40-plus years in the news business.
Mike, how about you?
Grew up in North Wilmington. Went to the former Holy Rosary School, which is no longer with us, and Salesianum. Got to give you a plug-in for St. Bonaventure.
They have a great journalism department there, yeah.
Yep, a couple of well-known journalism people that I went to school with. Worked in some daily newspapers and at TV Guide, and have been here a long, long time, 26 years.
Wow, 26 years, right. That's terrific. So, do most dioceses have their own newspapers? And what is the goal of a diocesan newspaper? Joe, you want to take that?
Yeah, well, so I fairly recently returned from the Catholic Media Association conference, and I'm happy to report that there were more than 350 attendees. Now, some of those are communications professionals like yourself, Bob, but probably at least half, if not more than half, are editors and reporters and journalists. And that was good. That's a professional development opportunity. There's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence, of which, I felt like I needed to be at those sessions because I don't know a whole lot about it, but I did learn a lot. What is their role? I mean, you've heard me say this before, with the media landscape being what it is these days, if we don't tell our stories, no one will. I mean, we have to get there. We have to get the stories of good work and things that are going on, education and faith and all the things that the church and parishes provide. So parishes and schools are best friends, and I think we're the most meaningful, and they're the most meaningful to us.
So how did the Dialog get started? Mike, you weren't quite there 60 years ago, but you've been part of it for the last 20 plus, 25, 26 years.
Or is it 30? Is it 30?
Yeah, I'm not that old. Not yet.
So how did this newspaper get started 60 years ago?
Well, from the best that I can tell, most of the diocesan newspapers came out of the Second Vatican Council. I think the bishops who attended, they're trying. Everybody knows the Vatican II is trying to modernize the church. They wanted more communication with the faithful, so they encouraged dioceses to start newspapers and parish councils and some other initiatives, and that's where most of these grew out of. I know Monsignor John Dewson was the first editor or publisher of the Dialog. So that it started in 1960, Five.
Yeah.
It's 60 years. 1965 started, and it's kind of grown from there.
Do you have any idea what the staff was like back then? Whether it was large?
They had a
staff?
lot more people than we have now. I know that, Bob.
Yeah, there was there was an editor, and it was there was a lot of turnover in the early years.
Right.
A couple writers, some freelancers that were around. A lot of wire copy.
Right.
Back then, but it was maybe two writers, three writers, photographer.
Right.
Or they used some local photographers, names that longtime residents area would recognize. Then moving into the 70s, it seems like they got more, like a bigger and more stable staff as they kind of grew. But it was, Joe's right. It was definitely bigger than what we have now. Our editorial team is
4 people.
4 people.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's interesting to look at it. I didn't look at it as closely as Mike did, but I have gone through the beginning. Starting from scratch, there's got to be a real challenge. And they you could tell that they had an idea of what they wanted to do. They had segmented in ways that they felt was important. And I mean, I guess it was a different age, right? Mike mentions that they had more wire copy. That's, stories that are provided by our news services. And that's true. Our paper, our printed paper now is probably 95% local, every edition. And part of that is, in those days, people weren't getting news from Rome or from Washington or from Baltimore even, really, necessarily. So it was more of a resource that people looked to for that, which is not as much the case anymore. We look for unique content that's right here in our local parishes and schools. But they knew what they were doing. I mean, they had some local stuff, and they had op-ed stuff and features and things like that. So they had a plan.
And these days, I wouldn't say that producing a newspaper is easy at all, but it is easier with digital and so forth. So putting an actual newspaper together was a challenge back in 1965.
Yeah. Which was only about 15 years before I started working
right.
in the news business. So I remember some of those, but it had really transitioned to digital production by the time I got into it. A lot of the hot lead and stuff like that was done. I'm not even really sure where they published here originally. I probably should know that.
I don't know if it may have been at the News Journal.
It may have been. May have been.
And then it was mailed, correct?
It was.
Even
mailed,
at that those very early days.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how will you guys be celebrating and marking the Dialog's 60th anniversary? We mentioned at the top is going to be a special section.
Yeah, September 19th. That's a Friday, I hope. There will be a special section, and it's going to have mostly Mike's contribution, a year-by-year sort of reflection in the paper. There's going to be sponsorships, longtime partners and advertisers with the paper. We're going to have other contributions. We're still, frankly, working on what it's going to look like, because as we talk right now, we're 6 weeks, 8 weeks. It's not that far.
Right.
But it's still a little bit down the road. And we'll have digital presence on it. We will present stuff. There'll be some stuff online that can't or won't be in print. All of Mike's story, for example, his 60 years worth of content is probably not going to all make the print edition, because it's a lot. It's a lot, yeah. But it'll all be online, and we will get the vast majority of it in print too. So it's still a work in progress, but I think thus far, Virginia O'Shea is a longtime member here, or staff member here. Erica Harmer is an integral part of what we do. We'll be on social media with it. That's one of Erica's responsibilities, and hopefully people follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and LinkedIn. So there'll be lots of excitement. We have a pretty busy couple of months, because we always have our back to school issue at the end of August, which keeps us busy, because schools are so important to us. But this is like a month later. We'll be pushing this out the door.
Yeah.
It's exciting. We're gonna do. I think it's gonna be what we hoped.
Yeah. My guests today on Catholic Forum are from the Dialog newspaper and the dialog.org. Joe Owens is the editor and general manager. Mike Lang, a writer for the paper. So, Mike, you did all the research. So walk us through some of the most important stories in the Dialog over the last 60 years. And you could keep it to an hour. That would be
Well, just looking at chronologically, this kind of what stood out to me, the 60s was a lot of Vatican II stuff, a lot of changes in the Mass and things like that. And there was a lot of stories about race relations in Wilmington.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like non-Catholic, not specifically Catholic stuff.
Right.
They had writers, they had the resources to go do stories about housing and employment and things like that. So that was a lot of the 60s.
And it was a very turbulent time in the city of Wilmington.
I know when I was born, the National Guard was stationed outside St. Francis Hospital.
Just a coincidence, right? It wasn't.
They left shortly after.
They must have known my dad. So a lot of the stuff in the 70s was a lot of the fallout from Vatican II. There were a lot of turnover, a lot of priests left locally and nationally.
Right.
There was a lot of that, and it was a big boom time for Catholic schools. A lot was they confronted right. There was a lot of white flight in Wilmington where families were leaving the city and going out to the suburbs, and with the desegregation, a lot of families put their kids in Catholic schools. So the schools were really crowded.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for the Dialog then. And as you move along, it was a lot of the same social justice concerns and things like that. With the 70s and into the 80s, a lot of pro-life stuff became a real big issue. Pope John Paul II, because the first wasn't around very long, obviously, was huge because he was the Pope for so long. He kind of dominated the church in the 80s. And then moving into the 90s, we started getting where the schools were getting a little smaller. That was a lot of the stuff. In our diocese, we've had several schools closed really in that first decade between maybe 2003 and 2010 or 11.
Right.
There were a lot of schools that closed, and then we had the sexual abuse scandal, which hit Wilmington pretty hard. So that was a big focus of the Dialog in those years. And the last 10 years or so, that has kind of settled down a little bit, but we still do a lot of school stuff, and it's a lot of parish stuff. And of course, having a president who's a parishioner at one of our churches kind of liven things up too. So that's kind of some things. I mean, obviously there's tons of stuff that people can read about.
Right.
Tied into that too, because I lived that era. I started school in the 60s, and I hate to say that, but it's true. A big impact there with the rise and then the dip. Vocations. I mean, we had nuns. You had nuns, and there were priests. I mean, there were brothers. There were lots of religious that were staffing schools, and it was more affordable for that reason, and I guess more compelling in the minds of parents that were sending their kids. So that was a fact. Vocations has played a big part in a lot of what's going on in the church, and so that's, I'm sure, part of the story. We're still losing priests, and that age out,
right,
and we need more.
Yeah, for sure.
We pray for it every week, right?
The priests that do get ordained now, they tend to remain priests. They're not having that. They don't leave like they were during the 70s, which was amazing. Just because the Dialog did a lot of, they would put a note in there that so and so, Father so and so, is resigned the priesthood or something. So that doesn't happen nearly as much now as it did in the 70s. So that's a good thing. You're getting men who are committed to it, and they go in later in life. They're not going as high school students. So I think that has something to do with it. And it was interesting to read some of these stories about these guys who would leave for whatever reason, and we're often quite candid when the Dialog would reach out to them and ask why they were
why they were leaving.
Why they were leaving? Yeah, we get some interesting stories.
Yeah, I can imagine. Is there anything else that kind of surprised you, or kind of thought, man, this is really interesting. I didn't know about this when you were going back through all of the back issues.
There's some neat things, stuff that I had heard. Father Hines, who is retired and lives down in Dover, ran a marathon, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Some priests that some I knew or know, and some that I didn't. Some of the things that they were able to do, which was kind of neat. They were involved in side hustles, I guess you could call it.
Ministries. We call them ministries.
Right.
Well, there was a priest who wrestled. There was a priest,
You mean like professional wrestling?
Yes.
There
There was
interesting.
There was a priest who ended up leaving the priesthood who raised horses in Cecil County. Father Hines was a marathoner, and him and Father Lawler and I think Father Ed Agner, who died a few years ago, used to ride bikes.
Right. That's in there. That's a pretty interesting thing.
Miles and miles and miles.
Yeah.
So in this special section,
you just see their humanity.
Yeah.
Like the regular, it could be regular guys. The special section that'll be in the September 19th dialogue. Will that have the wrestling story in there?
I don't think so.
I don't remember it.
I'd like to know that.
That one's not in there. The marathon is in there.
Yeah, I saw the marathon. Yeah, and the bikes.
And the bikes.
Yeah. Now, whether it makes it to the final print edition, we'll yet to be seen.
Yeah. So, what do you like most about your work with the dialogue? Start us off, Mike.
Actually, I really like working with, getting to know the high school kids. I like going to the schools. I like talking to the kids.
Right.
I like covering their athletics and their plays and their music and all their academics and all the stuff they do. I just like being around the kids, and
That's
it's kind
cool.
of, I know they read. When they know they're going to be in the dialogue, they're reading the website or the articles, and
Right.
I get parents to come up to me all the time, and they're like, "Hey, thanks for coming out and shooting my kid's field hockey game," and they enjoy it because they're not getting that anywhere.
Right.
They're not getting that anywhere else. So,
Right.
and the kids like it, and and it kind of keeps. I'm getting older, so it helps keep me young too, being around the high school kids. I really enjoy that. That's probably my favorite part.
Cool. How about you, Joe?
There's a lot of ways to measure success. We talk about this. I mentioned the Catholic Media Association. There's an awards ceremony, and we win some awards, and those are cool. And there's other ways of gaining recognition. But to me, it's more about when you encounter people who are reading the paper, who tell you that they're reading the paper, and you know that they're reading the paper because they're very specific about it, and that somehow or another had an impact on them. I mean, that for me is kind of why I've been sticking it out in this business for a long time. I like to see people's story. I'm a people person. I think you kind of have to be a people person to be in this business, but I like telling their stories, and sometimes they're very happy, and other times there's elements of sadness, but it's reality, and we're a community here. That's one of the things I said when I started working here. It's like I've been doing community journalism my whole life, and that's what this is. We do community journalism, so I really like that part of it.
So you do get regular feedback from our readers,
Yeah, and it's both sides of the aisle. I had a woman just this week. She was very upset about one particular thing in the paper, and I of course flipped through 8 other pages that she hadn't mentioned, and talk about stuff that was in there. But that's rare. We get a lot of people. The dialogue has a real loyal following and a strong name recognition in this diocese, and that's something you can't fake.
Mm-hmm.
People know what it is, they know what they're getting from it, and they look for it. Mm-hmm. So that's brand recognition is really important in our business, and I think we have it.
And I guess the future for the dialogue looks bright.
I mean, we do a lot with a little, and I think we serve our community in a way that really matters. We have an element of what we do. Mike's primarily responsible for it with schools and sports, which people follow.
Right.
What does that have to do with faith? Well, they're in a Catholic school and they're taking part in a. I wish I had a crystal ball for you as far as the future of any kind of newspaper. I've worked for a few that no longer publish.
Right. But you mentioned the social media, so you're out there you have that digital presence.
Absolutely.
So,
podcasts.
Yep.
We're sitting here right now. We have a One of Us podcast that highlights a different community member every other week. I mentioned Erica, and who would have thought even 5-6 years ago that we'd be on TikTok?
Right.
Now I don't know how much of a we're not like influencers on that platform, but we're there, and we're finding people where they are, as they love to say. So that from that perspective, I don't see how you can't have a major presence in whatever form of communication that you end up being. I mean, things are changing. Times are changing.
Right.
I'd love to say there's going to be a newspaper forever. I don't know the answer to that.
But communications will always be important.
I mean, it's evangelization.
Right.
And, that's why we refer to ourselves as a ministry, and this comes up a lot. And we like to tell people that when we meet them. We get out into the communities and we meet people, and that helps.
September 19th is the special anniversary edition. How can we get a copy, and how can we get more information about the Dialog?
Read the paper, read the website.
The dialog.org.
The dialog.org, and all of our contact information is there. Opportunities to advertise in there. We have a lot of former advertisers or advertisers that have been with us over the years. We're hoping to get some of those for our special section. We're out there. We're our digital our website, thedialog.org. You can easily sign up for the Angelus newsletter, which goes out a couple times a week and updates people on liturgical events and just news of the area and community events, stuff that's going on. I really, really try to urge people to sign up for the Angelus. It's right on it. It's on the homepage of our website, and it's easy to do. So we're there.
Joe and Mike, thanks for spending time with us today on Catholic Forum. Congratulations on the upcoming anniversary, and thanks for all your hard work.
Thanks.
And I'm almost 62, Bob. Or 60 also. How's that?
All right. Right.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for having us.